guys, Brendan Garst with Shift Colorado Magazine. We're checking out the 2023 Lexus IS500 F Sport that we have on loan from Lexus today. Just a quick evening point of view drive, doing a quick walk around of the car. We have driven this car 450 miles over the weekend, and it has been great so far. It's an exciting car, really good blend of power, performance, and comfort. We're gonna jump in the car and go for a quick drive. Put our seatbelt on here. Now, first thing when you get in the car, you are greeted with the pulsing start-stop engine light here. And go ahead and turn that on. Get the steering wheel out of the way. You can see that we're gonna get this interesting animation of the car coming up on screen. Engage cluster posted. We'll put it in drive, and we'll head out. Now, what we've noticed about this car and our opinion over the weekend of driving is that this really is kind of a Swiss Army knife for an enthusiast driver. This is a car that can kind of do a little bit of everything. So we have driven canyons, we've driven in the city, find the car to be very comfortable and competent at doing both. Now, what's interesting about this is, as many have said, this is what Lexus anticipates to be the final hurrah for V8s in their sedan platforms. That means that this V8, the 2UR, is going to be on its way out with the current generation of the LC500, the IS500, and the RCF. This really is a motor that can kind of do it all as far as the way that it performs, especially given the various drive modes here. One of the things I've really noticed is how much the drive modes change the character of the car. So we took off an Eco, and right now all I can hear is tire noise. There's really nothing coming from the V8, even when I put my foot into it a little bit. Now, back into normal, your throttle tip-in sharpens a little bit. You get a little bit more response out of your gas pedal. You start to hear just a little bit more of that V8 noise. But really, when you start moving into the sport mode, so you can see I just moved into Sport S mode. That's when the character of the car changes again. Got a little bit of a downshift there. And then we have Sport S Plus, and that's where things really get fun. And here we have an on-ramp. I don't know if the mic's going to pick up the V8 noise, but hopefully you get a little bit of this, because it is good. You can see on the tack turns orange when it's time to shift, which is kind of a neat little touch. You also have your light red line, and then your dark red line, so you know where you should kind of stop ragging on the car a little bit. But in manual mode in Sport S, the car will never actually shift for you. You command all the shifts, which is really interesting. I've driven sporty automatics before, and they still ultimately have some capacity to decide when to shift for you. But I've noticed with this manual, it really won't do anything unless you command it. I'm gonna put it back into normal drive mode. We'll talk about the interior here a little bit. Interior is great. It's really comfortable. No one really does leather seats quite like Lexus. I would put this up against any German manufacturer's interior. Now, the layout of the cabin, I wound up feeling a little bit cramped in when I initially got the car. I've grown to feel a little bit more comfortable in it, but I am used to tight spaces in cars. I've got some other cars that, you know, are kind of similar in class to this, and that's one of the things that some of the other folks who've been along with us on drives this weekend have mentioned as well, is that the seating has a tendency to feel like you're very intimate with the car, we'll say. You're tight in, but that can be both a good and a bad thing. It depends on kind of what your preferences are. Once you're in, the car is tremendously comfortable. I'm just kind of putzing along at 65 miles per hour here on glorious I-70 westbound here just past Arvada, Colorado. And the car is an absolute delight. You know, you figure out what this guy here is doing. You know, the other good thing about V8 power and V8 torque is you have the power to pass people when they don't know what they're doing. As we drive towards the mountains here into the sunset, you know, a couple of things to point out in the interior. Got an analog clock, which is kind of a Lexus and Infiniti hallmark. Nice full color display here. I think it's roughly 8 to 9 inches, might be 10. Touchscreen as well, so there are items that you can touch and command on the screen. Onboard navigation as well as Bluetooth connectivity. Speaker system is Mark Levinson. Sounds wonderful. Only minor gripe that I have with it is still wired if you want to use CarPlay or Android Auto. Moving down the control stack here on the right, we have all of our HVAC climate control buttons. I'm going to turn it back on for a second to show you an interesting feature. The climate select for temperature is not a knob, it is a capacitive touch bar. You can see as I'm changing the temperature, I'm just dragging my finger up and down this bar. We'll turn that back off here. The air conditioning has been fantastic. We've been having a pretty significant hot streak here in Denver in the last few weeks, a couple of days up in the mid-90s while we've had this car, and it's been able to keep us cool the entire time we've been out, which has been great. Also, we have a heated steering wheel, heated seats, and cooled seats for both the driver and passenger. We've got kind of standard gear shift affair here, PRND. Push it to the left to go into M, manual mode. We have our drive modes next to that. We have a rotary knob to select from Eco to Normal to Sport S to Sport S Plus. We also have a Sport mode as well as traction control off. The Lexus also has a trackpad. Used it. I've found these touch interface trackpads in other cars to be a little bit useless, but what's interesting about this is it snaps to the next option instead of being kind of a mouse pointer. So aside from within the navigation screen itself where it does kind of act as a mouse pointer, but if you want to find an option, you can just do swipe gestures, which is kind of neat. It's definitely more useful than other cars I've seen touchpads implemented on in the past. Would I use it? I'm still not sure. Moving on to the center display, this is another interesting trick of the car. So the instrument stack here is fully digital. You have kind of a mono gauge in the center here that's got both your tach, your miles per hour, currently displaying TPMS, oil temperature to the left, coolant temperature to the right, as well as current status of the gas tank. And you can shift through the modes of what's getting displayed using the joypad button here on the steering wheel on the right. So you can see your range, gear position. You can see the lane assist. The car has active lane keeping. It does have about 8,000 cameras on it, as far as I've noticed. I mean, obviously I'm joking, but there are a lot of cameras on this thing. There is a camera roughly anywhere you look on the exterior of this car. Other interesting features is you can hit this display mode button here on the steering wheel, and you can shove that tach over to the side, and there's a full array of other screens here. You can move through the various categories of screens. So you've got information screens that are similar to what was getting displayed there. You've got your eco indicator if you're interested on the ecological impact that your V8 drives are making. We're currently doing a pretty decent job, roughly halfway. But you've got kind of the standard stuff. You've got some track-oriented things. You can see your G-forces as well as a record of the G-forces that the car's encountered in recent history. Again, gear position, tire pressure. You've got a compass. You've got audio information about what you're listening to. Again, lane keeping. Any warnings or messages from the car's side. And kind of a status of the assist that you've got on. So the car does have a lot of technology in it as far as safety goes. You've got lane center assist, where the car will actively steer for you to keep you inside the bounds of the lanes. You've got lane departure alert. You can change the sensitivity of both of those. Curve speed reduction on cruise control. If the car knows that there's a sharp curve coming up, it can drop the speed of the car while it's traveling. Pre-collision avoidance. It's also got cross traffic as well as blind spot monitoring. If you've got someone hanging out in your blind spot in either of these mirrors, the car will alert you to that by lighting up a little indicator in the corner of the mirror. And also if you put your signals on when someone's in your blind spot, it'll let you know. You know, as far as the materials in here, everything's super comfortable. It's super well thought out. The human factors are good. Only gripe is the buttons here are a little bit small on the HVAC. The font's a little small. It's a little tough to read. But overall, you know, just very, very nice, sophisticated interior, great place to sit. As far as the car's road manners, you know, we've been driving down a little bit of a mix of freeway and urban streets here in dusky Arvada at 8 p.m. here. And the car, again, is just mild-mannered as all get out. Now, that's not to say that if you want to get a little bit more enthusiastic with your driving, it's not just a turn of that knob away, because it absolutely is. But what's interesting to me about this is you've got a 470 horse V8, a 5-liter V8, really last of a dying breed. These 3-box sedans are not going to be, you know, a typical thing going forward. In our chats with manufacturers, we've even heard that, you know, the fact that anyone is putting focus on these is atypical. This car's swan song, or this car as a swan song rather, this is a good car. This is something that you could easily have as one car that fills multiple roles. I mean, this is a good adult car. You could take this on a date. Kids, passengers, it's debatable. We've had a mix of opinions over the folks who've ridden in the back seat over the weekend. Some adults have fit and said they're reasonably comfortable. They might not want to spend forever back there. Other adults have said that they don't have enough headroom, which is kind of something that gets mortgaged a little bit with a car with an aggressive roofline like this. Low roof lines in the back are something that you kind of contend with in the current design language of sedans. Kids easily would fit in the back seat. One criticism we had was that the cup holder in the back seat is something that may easily get broken by a kid who's maybe not paying too much attention or doesn't realize how much the folks care about the car. But another pro that kind of negates that is the latch system in the back. We talked to Brandon Day, Shift Colorado's resident car dad, and he mentioned that the latch points were something that really stood out to him. Back there, you just lift up a Velcro flap, and you have 2 little windows that expose the 2 lower seat anchor points, and the upper seat anchor point is just a little flip tab. Super easy to find. Don't have to do a whole lot of contortioneering to get to the latch points and get them belted in a secure way. So this is definitely a car that could child. You could get kids in this. And then, you know, at the end of the day, we've covered some of the more pedestrian things, but this car is just a lot of fun. There's a lot of different ways to think of this. One of the ways that I've really kind of come to terms with what this is Lexus kind of made a 4-door Mustang, and I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but it's a good starting point. This is a 4-door Mustang with some refinement. I mean, you listen to that engine for what you can hear in it, and it is smooth. The acceleration is great. It's on demand, and especially for, you know, a big, naturally aspirated motor up here at altitude. That's not always the easiest thing to get as far as responsiveness from an NAV8 up here. You know, we're roughly a mile high up in Denver, and naturally aspirated engines tend to suffer compared to turbo motors with forced induction. While this car could fit some of the more enthusiast-focused side of things, it's not necessarily going to be 100% as focused as other cars in this category. If you were thinking, you know, M3, C63 AMG, but those are also cars that cost a lot more than this car. So our car is, the Monroney price starts at a base of, I think, around 62,000 bucks. The options that we have equipped on our car as tested include the matte black BBS 19-inch alloy forged wheels, this paint color Iridium, which is this really excellent looking red tint coat. I think that's about 600 bucks. And then we have a rear bumper applique for $90, which, how good is that? But it brings the total as delivered price of this car up to roughly $66,000, which is not a bad deal for one of these. You think about where you're going to be getting into an M3 and realize that that's going to be significantly north of this, and this car really does show up as a good value for what you're getting. And it's true, you may not be quite as track focused. One of the things that I've noticed is the car feels like it might be a tad on the softer side when it comes to the brakes, but the suspension's very competent. This does have variable suspension that changes with the drive modes. But the real star of the show here is that engine. I mean, it's hard to tell if the mic's picking this up, but the car is, it just sounds so good when you put your foot into it and lean hard into it. Truth of the matter is, this is a great way to send off the V8. We won't always have this as an experience, and I know everyone is harping on about this. You know, it's something that a lot of people are talking about, but it's for good reason. There is nothing that sounds like a good V8, and especially as we go to V6 turbos as kind of the performance option. Those can sound good too, but turbos muffle the noise. Turbos change the visceralness of the drive. They are a layer in between you and what the motor's going to do when you give it an input. And for Lexus to still be building something like this is showing that Toyota and Lexus are still having some fun. And you know, you've seen that in other cars over the last couple of years as well. If you look at the fact that they're still producing the GR86, which is a car that a lot of people have really enjoyed. It's really taken on a spot in the enthusiast community as kind of a standard bearer of rear-wheel drive enthusiasm. The GR Corolla, you know, the three-cylinder turbo rally-inspired wonderkind Corolla that, you know, is really hot right now, really hard to find. Or just, you know, you look at other things in Toyota's model lineup. The 4Runner, as they like to call it, the Colorado Camry out here, driving around with the old livery stripes that the old TRD trucks used to have. There's just, Toyota's doing some neat things, and they're definitely giving nods to enthusiasts where they're able, and I think that that's definitely what this car is. Rear-wheel drive, which is debatable as to whether you could make it work in Colorado. You know, obviously this is probably not a car that you would want to take out in the snow. It does have performance tires on it. Good set of snow tires would be a must if you wanted to continue to drive this car through the winter, for example. Is this car good enough to be a second car? I think it is. You know, thinking about this car as just a toy versus kind of a do-it-all, one car that can do everything, I could see the case and the argument for this being a little bit of a toy. It's a fun car, and you know, I've spent every day this weekend waking up way too early in the morning to go out and drive this car hard in the canyons, and it's been rewarding every single time. I've never felt like I'm waking up to put the car through something that it doesn't want to do. You know, it feels eager, it feels like it wants to just eat up turns, bomb canyon roads, and then if you get stuck in traffic or want to calm down, you know, it's really good at that too. Overall, we've really enjoyed our time in this car. You know, the biggest detractors I think that we've found are the wired CarPlay, missing a couple of creature comforts that you might expect on a car kind of in this bracket of kind of the luxury performance sedan. You have no heads-up display, you have no wireless charging. These are minor gripes, so like if you're buying the IS500, you're buying it, I would say 9 out of 10 people are probably buying it for the powertrain. This is kind of the peak of the V8 for Lexus. And while it's missing a couple of certain creature comforts that we just talked about, it's not like it's short of amenities. It's really nice in here. You know, I'll say it again, no one does a leather interior like Lexus. These are some of the nicest seats that I've sat in a long time. Rear seat legroom and headroom, another thing to be aware of. Just shorter folks are going to be fine. Folks who are taller, longer in the torso, longer legs, may not be as comfortable back there. And there's just also not much to do back there. Not that that's a bad thing, but you're really buying this car for the 2 front seat passengers to go out and have a good time. Other things that I can think of that come to mind, you know, the button layout and certain features can be a little bit hard to find and identify. I spent a good amount of time looking for how to bring up the odometer. This is a test car on loan from Lexus via a press organization here in Denver. So we have to be a little mindful of the miles that we put on it. The mileage is actually on its own button down here on the left side of the steering wheel, or the odometer rather, the trip odometer and the main odometer. Other things down there, we do have a power sunshade. You can command the rear view camera and you can change the automatic brights mode, so this car does, when it identifies there's nothing oncoming, flash the brights. And I've had it flash the brights at a couple oncoming cars. I'm assuming the visual recognition of an oncoming car is really good, but not perfect. It just did it right there, for example. But yeah, overall, this has been a great car. We've really enjoyed it. Would I own one? This is definitely something I would think about owning. For something that can be comfortable, yet kind of when I want to get sporty with my driving, this is a great alternative for that. As I've gotten older, cars like this that have some modicum of comfort to them have started to appeal to me a little bit more over cars that are just 100% hard-edged, like other things that I've owned in the past that are focused way more towards just performance and viscerality of the experience. But you still have the option for that here. It's not like this car has gone 100% soft edge either. This car's a really good blend of both, and I could see this fitting into my life as, you know, a blend of a commuter or a car that, you know, if my plans were to change, I found myself with some time to kill away from home in the car, I could go out and find a fun driving road and really enjoy it. So for me, this car works. If you want something that is 100% focused on being a luxury car or 100% focused on being a track weapon, this probably isn't the car for you. This car is, I would sum it up as this car is kind of the beauty of compromise. This is when a compromise isn't painful, but it is a compromise. You know, that being said, I know it's getting really dark here, but we wanted to record a little bit of a POV drive for you guys. I'm Brendan with Shift Colorado Magazine. A little bit about us. We are a small grassroots magazine project. We are just getting into the car review game here and really enjoyed having the chance to learn more about the IS500 F here. If you have any questions, you can send them to us on our Facebook group. We are at Shift Colorado Magazine. You can find us on Instagram as well, same handle. You can also send questions to team@shiftcoloradomagazine.com. We'll do our best to get you an answer. Until next time, I'm Brendan, Shift Colorado Magazine, and we'll talk to you soon.